Hello guys and welcome back. In our last lesson we saw how we could work with sets in Python, we saw how we could create sets, we saw how we could convert sets into lists and vice versa. We also saw a few of the set methods. In this next lesson we're going to look at something called a for loop within Python. Basically what a for loop does, it allows you to be able to perform action on each element that is part of a list, a dictionary, a tuple, a set, or a string. Basically, you can use a for loop to iterate over a set of data. So let's see how we can actually use for loops within Python. So the first thing we'll do here is to create a new project, a new Python file rather. So I'll do Control N to create a new Python file. I don't know why it hasn't been working. So let me see, Control N. Oh, great. So I'll now press Control S to save that. And I'll just call that 12 underscore for loops python dot py. So it actually understands, and it's not there. I can't find it. Oh, there it is. So I'll close the readme file and I'll close the set file. So let's actually create, let's start with a title. Let's say working with Python for loops. So I'll save that. So let's create a my favorite. Let's create a list. So it could be a list of anything. So let's create a list of programming languages. So let's see, programming languages is going to be equal to, we'll create our square bracket. So this is going to be a list. And let's say, let's start with Python. So let's say C++. Let's say Java. And then let's look at let's use C, and let's say Swift, and let's pass in a last one. Let's say let's say JavaScript, like so. So here we have a list of programming languages. So what we're actually going to do is to use a for loop to kind of like print each of these programming languages. And what we're going to do is to use the keyword for, and then we need to create a variable on the fly, right? So we're creating a variable on the fly. So let's say for languages, and this could be anything in programming languages, and then we have a small colon, and then press the return key. And what we want to do is to print languages. So what Python is going to do is to create a temporary holder in memory that is going to store the location of each of these items in memory and print them out. So that's what this variable is doing here. It's totally new. We didn't have to declare it, right? If we wanted, we could declare it, but Python understands what we're trying to do. So next, if we actually print this out, let me just run this program. You can actually see the list of these languages like so. So it's actually listed them out and, you know, displayed them so we could see them. So we could even loop through a sequence of characters. So let's say we have a state, and we call that MISSISSIPPI, Mississippi. So we can actually use a for loop to loop through the letters of the state. So let's just say for letters in state. So we can say print letters. So if we save that and run it, so you can actually see we're printing out the letters of this string, and it's actually printing them out vertically. We could even escape through a statement and stop a loop before it ends, just like we've seen in our example when we were working with our sets, right? So we could use with the if statements, sorry. So we could use a break and then we can use a continue, so we can continue moving through the elements. So let's actually see that. So let's see breaking, oops, out of a for loop. And to break out of a loop, you want to set a condition to either true or false. Then you can break out, from that condition using an if statement. So let's look at our programming languages example again. So let's see for lang in programming languages. So here we're going to print out lang. So let's add an additional if statement within this. So let's say if lang is equal to, let's say Java, so what do we do if language is equal to Java? We're just going to break out of this code like so. And what I'm going to do is, let me just save this, let's leave this and let's quickly run this. So you can actually see we have Python, C++, Java, C, Swift, and JavaScript. So this is not working. This didn't work, because if it had worked, we'll always see we'll only stop with Python, C++, and Java. So we're not getting, something's actually wrong somewhere. Let's clear the screen. So let's save that and run it again. So it printed the whole thing. It didn't skip out of that. So let's see why we're doing that wrong. So let's see our spelling. So we have lang in program print lang. If lang equals Java, let's see this. Let's convert. Let's use this. Let's say if this is Swift, and what I want to do is to just comment this out so we can have a clear screen. Alright, good. So we actually have that. Let's run it. Python, C++, Java, C, and Swift. Yeah, so if it's Swift, yeah, good. So it actually stopped at Swift, and we're not seeing JavaScript. So I think it's good. It was working properly. Oh, okay. It's still displaying. We're not seeing JavaScript. So let's run that again. So we are not seeing JavaScript. So it means our code is breaking at Swift. If we try this and set it to Python, let's run that and see. So we only get Python. So it only executed the first element, only displayed the first element, and then it actually broke out of this code right here. So that's how we actually can use that loop. Now we can actually switch the position, right? If we indent, because if you actually see where we are actually placing this, we're actually printing and then we're actually displaying that result here. So if we set this print to be underneath, we're actually going to get a different result, and you can actually try putting that at the bottom. So we can actually use the continue to stop the Python from looping through and then continue to the next one. So basically, if we switch this to Python and then we say continue instead of using in fact, let's leave that, but I'll comment this out like so. But then if I say continue, so let's look at the results we're going to get if we use continue. So with continue, I actually have Python, C++, Java. Let me clear the screen so we're working with a clean slate. And let's save and run that again. Oops. So what's happening? Yeah, good. So we're actually not going to get anything because we're telling Python to exit out when it actually meets the first instance. So let's use C++ right now. So let's save that and let's run this program. Let's clear the screen and make sure we're saving and make sure that is accurate. So let's save that and let's run it again. So if lang equals this C++, we want to continue, and then let's print out the language. So let's say print lang, after that continue, but not from here. So I'll get rid of this print like so. Good. So let's run it now. So we have Python, Java, C, Swift, and JavaScript. So each time Python encounters C++, continue, do not include C++, just jump over it and continue running the program. That's why we can see the output as Python, Java, C, Swift, and JavaScript. It basically jumped over C++. If we want to actually continue our program whenever we encounter Swift, all we need to do is just pass in the Swift string here, and then let's run this. We can actually see our results without any Swift included in this program. So that's one cool way of doing this. We can not only list or iterate over strings, we can even iterate over numerical values. So if you want to loop a program a specific or set number of times, let's say for instance you know how many times you want to loop through a function or a program, you can use the range function, and this will return a sequence of numbers, and it will start by 0 in increments of the unit value. So all that is just talk. So I'll just comment this out real quick. Let's turn this into a multi-line comment, and then we'll work with the numerical values. Oops, why do I keep, oh, okay, my @ is actually reversed on my keyboard, so that's why it's actually doing that. So I'll just head back up here, and that's just the using numerical values and range function. So let's have a number, and let's set that to 10. So we can use a for loop to actually loop through this set of numbers starting from 0. So let's actually see how to do that. So let's say for num in, or let's say for number in, so let's say val in range number. Now remember, I actually created that number, and I give it a value of 10. So let's print out the value. And if you remember, we can even use f strings here. And this is going to be our oh, it's actually val, not value. So let's say val. The values are, and let's just run that real quick. So let's see what happens here. So it starts with 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So why is it starting from 9 when I've specified, you know, the range here? So That's quite strange, right? So we actually have a range and we have a number, which is 10, and we actually print in the values in range. So I'm just say for, val or whatever it is in range number. Let's try this. Let's do this. Let's say 20, and let's run this. So good. So it actually starts from 0 to 19, excluding the last value because the index starts from 0. So you're going to have n minus 1. Basically, that means if you wanted to print 10 items, you're going to, have to put 11. So let's say, for instance, we want to print out 10 items. We'll be tempted to say 10, but this is actually going to run from 0 to 9 because 0 is also included. So if we wanted 10 items, we'll set it to 11. And if we print this, we're going to have 0 to 10. Because it's 0 index, it always starts from this value. And then I tried creating a variable, and I called that variable number, and I ran this. And what I was getting, oh, I didn't save the program. That was why I was getting the error earlier on. So with the range method, it could accept an override where we could specify the start and stop position. So if I say start, create a variable called start and say 1, and I say stop, I set this value to 20. So if I say for I in range start, comma, stop, and I go here and I say print I, and we run that. So what happens is, let's clear the screen and save and run so we can have a clear space to run with, to work. So you can actually see I'm starting from, so I'm starting from 1 to, let's see, I started at 1. Let's start from 12. I think this gives it more, so we're starting from 12 and we're stopping at 20. So let's get rid of this so it doesn't interfere with our output. Alright, good. So let's run this. So good. So we actually see the range is from 12 to 19. Like I said, if you want to include the last element, all you have to do is to make this, let's make this 21 if we wanted to end at 20. So whatever value you want to end at, just think about an n minus 1. So if I wanted to stop at 20, I'll actually have to do a 21, so that could be actually 21 minus 1, or let's just say n plus 1. So again, if we run that, we have our start and a stop. Now we could even use an optional increment sequence where we could specify a step. So a step is going to count the number of steps it would take for you to get the results. So let's add a step, and I'll set the step to 2. And if I set my start from, let's see, from the number 2, let's see what our I is going to be now. So if I run this, okay, so let's clear the screen and let's run that again. Oops, I think I'm running on debug mode. So let's stop that debug and let's run this. So we're starting at 2. We're taking a single step, right? Oh, good. Oh, sorry about that, guys. Really sorry. I didn't pass in the step right here. So that was why it wasn't working. So let's run this. And we start from 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, basically even numbers. If we change our step to 3, Let's run that and see what we get. So we're actually having a set of odd numbers from the start position to the stop position and also to the range to the step position. You could actually create a for loop like so for val in, let's say, range. So you can start at 1, you can stop at 10, and you can have a step of 4, and then you could go ahead and print val. Now this would also work as well, but you just have numbers here and it's kind of like not readable. But when you declare your variables and you pass in those variables as arguments into your function, you can actually see you have this result, and it's much more clearer for you to see your output like so. So we could use else statements as well within our for loops, and then we could break them. Let's just quickly see how we could use the else statement within our for loop. So let's just comment all this out. We're going to be doing a lot of commenting out. So I'll return my numlock. So let's say we have for num in range, so let's say 12. So let's just print out our num like so, and then we can specify an else statement. So what's going to happen is, I'll just say else, so print loop executed successfully. So let's run this. So at the end of the loop, it tells us loop executed successfully. So print this. When this is done, else you just print this statement as well. So we can even use break statements within the loop as well if we want to break out of this statement. So we can use the else and also the if statement. So let's see the example right here. Whoops, I'm actually picking this up, which is not cool. So for y, and again, you can actually name your variable any value. So let's say for y in range, a range of 10. So now we're going to say if y is equal to 4. So what are we going to do if y is equal to 4? Well, we want to break, and then once we've broken out of this, let's print our value of y. And once we've done that, we can actually pass in an else statement. And notice how I am setting up the indentation for the else. If I try this, this is going to be something else. So notice the indentation is on the same line with the for statement. And here we're going to say print, and we'll borrow from our last example. See loop finally executed. And I forgot the exclamation mark. So if we run this, so we have 0, 1, 2, 3, and it says okay, so this is what happens here. It actually broke out of this, and we actually have this output. Right, so let's see what the problem is. If I switch this over here, alright, so we're printing y. So let's run that and see what the problem is. Okay, loop, we start from 0, 1, 2, 3, and we actually have 10. So once it's 4, it actually breaks out of this statement. Alright, there's a bug in here. I'm not really sure I can figure that out, but I'll quickly I'm gonna look at that and then let you guys know what the issue is with this bug in the next lesson. But let's move on from now. We can have a nesting. Basically, we can have a loop within another loop, and then we could print out two of these loops, and the nests we are going to use could be actually any value. So let's say we have a value called size, and this is going to be equal to a list. Let's say we have 3 items in that list, 45. So let's say let's call this heights, and I'll call this widths. And for widths, we'll do the same. Let's just plug in 3 values as well. So we have 2 lists here. So what we're going to do is to create a nested for loop. So to do that, let's say for I in width, like so. I call that widths and press the return key. So now I'm going to say for j in heights, like so. So let's print out I, comma j, and let's put a title here. Nested for loops. So let's save this and let's run this and see. So here we can actually see what's happening right here. We are actually nesting out these elements, and it's printing them again for elements of ij, 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 like that. And it's actually kind of like nesting the content within the array. So we can actually see our where's our results? I'll just quickly run that again. So we can see that we have these elements. Let's just look at our widths and heights. So we have 23 and then 3, 23, we have 8 and then 2. So 23, 2, 45, 12, like so. So it's picking each line and then looping those lines over and over again. So that's actually how the nesting works in Python. If you want to leave an element kind of empty when you created it, you can actually use a pass to actually leave it empty. And we can actually see this example when we're working with classes as well. So for instance, if I say for I in width, and if I'm not ready to use this yet, I could just use the pass keyword, and this is widths. I could just use the pass keywords to actually see this output. So that's how we can work with loops. We can use loops to iterate or to count over elements within a an iterable collection, like a list, a set, a dictionary, or a tuple. We can actually use for loops and it will work. We can use for loops to, go through each element in a sequence. So once again, thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next lesson where we'll look at an awesome data type in Python called dictionaries.